Welcome back, guys. In today's episode, I'm sharing 8 true disturbing stories about the Appalachian Mountains. 2 hikers kept circling the same tree with claw marks that hadn't been there minutes earlier. And one ranger's visitor knew things no one else should, right down to the missing woman's yellow tent. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, share this with your friends, and let me know where you're watching from. Thanks. Now let's get into it. My name's Daniel, and I was 27 when this happened. I worked for the Park Service out near Winslow Ridge in West Virginia, not far from the Green Hollow Preserve. It wasn't one of those dramatic jobs, no rescue missions or bear standoffs. Most of my time was spent checking trails, logging broken signs, and making sure campers weren't wandering too far off the mapped paths. It was a quiet gig, repetitive, in a way I actually liked, no surprises. I'd heard the local stories, of course. Appalachian towns always have them. But I didn't pay attention. I figured most of it was just folklore, passed around by folks who'd lived there too long. Then came late September 2021. My supervisor flagged an old fire tower listed in an internal memo, one that hadn't been used in decades. It was tucked out past a ridge called Potter's Spine. It didn't even show up on the public trail maps. The job was simple: hike up, snap a few photos, write down its condition, and head back. They were considering demolition. I left early that morning, parked at the access trailhead, and started the hike around 10. The trail started off easy, gentle incline, lots of canopy, decent footing. I remember thinking how sharp the air smelled that day, kind of like dried leaves and something metallic. Not unpleasant, just crisp. I had my usual kit: camera, field notebook, compass, flashlight, radio, and my sidearm. Standard stuff. I checked in with dispatch before heading in. Everything felt normal. About a mile in, something weird happened. The blue trail markers just stopped. Normally, you see one every 10 trees or so, but the last one I saw was this faded smear on a beech tree. After that, nothing. I walked in slow circles, trying to spot another. Nada. I figured maybe weather had worn them off. Still, it gave me this weird pause, like I'd stepped off the grid without meaning to. I reached the tower around 2:45 p.m. It looked rough. The base leaned slightly and the stairs were visibly rotting. I didn't go up right away. Walked the perimeter first, took a few pictures, made notes. The forest around it was oddly clean. No branches on the ground, no tracks, just hard-packed soil and this weird, dead silence. That was the first thing that made me stop and think. Not peaceful quiet, just a total absence of sound, like the forest had muted itself. Then I heard something. Crunch. Off to the left, it was quick, like a footstep. I turned fast, thinking maybe it was a deer or a raccoon. Nothing. Just trees. I waited. No wind, no birds. I called out, "Park Service! Anyone out here?" Silence. Then, another crunch, closer this time. I stepped toward it. Slowly, scanned the trees. Nothing. The quiet was so thick it felt artificial almost. I backed off and headed to the tower. Figured I'd get the photos and get out. The stairs groaned like they were trying to talk me out of climbing, but I went up anyway. The lookout room was disgusting. Moldy, broken gear, dust everywhere. I took some quick shots, then went over to the window that faced the direction I'd hiked in. That's when I saw it. Something was standing just inside the tree line down the ridge, right where the trail curved out of view. It wasn't shaped like a person or an animal, just this tall, dark form. Almost like a shadow someone had pulled upright and left standing. I grabbed my binoculars. Before I could focus, it moved, stepped behind a tree in one smooth, unnatural motion. Too smooth, too quiet. I stayed up there for 20 minutes, maybe more. Scanned the trees again and again. Nothing moved. Eventually, I made my way down. Carefully. Slower this time. Every step got double-checked. The trail back felt off. The way the turns fell, the way the trees leaned, it didn't match what I remembered. I checked my map. Something wasn't right, like the forest had quietly shifted while I was up there. Then it showed up again, right ahead of me on the trail, maybe 50 yards. Same tall figure. Still no face, no details. Just this long, stretched black shape, arms too low, legs too long, just standing. I froze. Watched it. It didn't move. I pulled out my radio. Potter Tower, base to dispatch. Do you copy? Static. Turned the dial. Tried again. Dispatch, this is base. I need assistance. Do you copy? Still just static. I lowered the radio. Looked up. You're gone. Not walking away, not ducking, just not there anymore. I didn't run, but I moved fast. Compass was spinning like a toy. I gave up on it. I stuck to the trail, or what I hoped was the trail. That's when I noticed the same tree I'd passed earlier. It had a strip of blue paint down one side. Then I passed it again, and the third time I saw deep claw marks slashed into the bark, big ones, thick, like something had been dragged across the tree on purpose. No bear or cat in those woods had claws like that. Then I heard footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, matching my pace. I stopped. They stopped. I moved again. They moved again. I pulled my sidearm and held it low. I didn't aim, just kept it ready. My fingers were shaking. Then I heard it breathe, wet. Not deep, not loud, like air moving through water or a hole. It was the kind of sound you don't want to believe came from anything alive. I bolted, no hesitation, crashed through brush, slid over rocks. At some point I caught a root and went down hard, shoulders slammed a tree. I got up, didn't stop. My backpack caught on something, tore. I left it. When I saw the silver of my truck's windshield through the trees, I nearly lost it. I sprinted, keys already in hand. Got in, slammed the door, locked everything. I sat there for maybe a minute, shaking, chest pounding, just trying to keep my hands from dropping the keys. Then I looked up. It was standing at the tree line, just outside the trail. No hiding now, no subtlety. It was watching me, and it didn't care that I saw it. It didn't come any closer, didn't back off either. Just stood there while I started the engine and drove. I didn't stop until I was back at the ranger station. I told them the tower was a hazard, the trail was unstable, and we needed to close access. They agreed, no questions. About 3 weeks later, I got an email about a missing hiker. Same area, no trace, just his dog found its way back to the trailhead. I didn't answer the email. Didn't go back to help. I haven't been anywhere near Potter Spine since. I'm 27, work shipping for a warehouse outside Asheville. And when life starts feeling like a loop, I hike. Alone. No earbuds, no hiking buddies, just me, my gear, and miles of quiet trail. It's not about exercise. I just need the space. October's the sweet spot for it. Not too hot, bugs are mostly dead, and the crowds thin out once school's back in session. I've done parts of the Appalachian Trail before, a few popular stretches, mostly in North Carolina and Tennessee, but this time I wanted something different. Something I wouldn't see tagged on Instagram or listed in a travel blog. I didn't care about elevation stats or scenic overlooks. I just wanted out. I found a mention, just one, on this old backpacking forum I'd bookmarked years ago. Some guy, username Crawl73 or something like that, had made a post back in 2011. He talked about a disconnected feeder trail somewhere outside Baxter, Kentucky, up in Harlan County. Said it was technically still public land, just no longer maintained. No signage, no updated maps, nothing official. But if you followed it far enough, it looped and fed back into a main trail eventually. He called it the cleanest silence I ever heard. That line stuck with me. I dug around for anything else, pictures, maps, trip reports, but came up empty. Just that one thread. Still, it seemed doable. I marked the approximate area in my offline map, packed 3 days' worth of food and supplies, and drove up that Saturday morning. The roads got narrower the closer I got. Paved turned to gravel, then gravel to dirt. Eventually, I found a shoulder wide enough to pull off, maybe 10 feet from where brush had been trampled, just enough to suggest someone else had stepped through recently, or maybe not that recently. I shut off the engine, sat there for a second, then stepped out into the stillness. No other cars, no trail markers, no signs at all. Perfect. I threw on my pack, locked the car, and started walking. The first stretch was what I expected. Dense trees, vague path, roots that wanted to twist your ankle every other step. But it wasn't unfriendly. It just felt like I'd walked into somewhere I wasn't supposed to know about. Not forbidden, just not mine. About 5 miles in, I saw the first one. A small wooden board nailed into a tree at shoulder height, maybe 6 inches wide, worn smooth at the edges. The word 7 was carved into it. Simple, clean lettering, nothing else. No arrow, no trail insignia, just that number. I paused, snapped a picture, then kept walking. Figured maybe someone marked mileage in reverse, or it was part of some unofficial loop. Hikers leave weird stuff behind all the time. 40, maybe 50 minutes later, I saw another one. 6. Same wood, same size, same hand-carved lettering. This one was lower, nailed into a tree closer to the ground. That's when I realized I hadn't seen anything else for miles. No boot prints, no soda cans, no wildlife. It was so quiet I could hear the sound of my hydration tube shifting when I walked. I slowed down after that, not on purpose. My body just did it. I started looking around more, checking behind me every couple of minutes. Not because I thought anyone was there, more like I wanted to make sure. Then I hit marker 5. This one wasn't nailed. It was propped upright in the dirt, just leaning against the base of a V-shaped split in a dead tree. The number was carved deeper, harsher, like someone had done it fast and hard. The wood looked newer too. No moss, no weathering. It didn't belong. I turned around then, slowly. Nothing behind me, no breeze, no movement. The kind of quiet where even your own breath feels too loud. I didn't stay long. At marker FO4, things changed. It was painted, not carved. Blood-red paint, thick and uneven like it had been slapped on in a hurry. The board was nailed into a stump crookedly, tilted left. As I stepped past it, I felt a pop inside my nose, like pressure shifting, and then blood started pouring out. No warning, just a hot, wet trickle down my upper lip. I stumbled back, wiping at it, and felt my ears buzz like I was standing under high voltage. My hands shook as I pulled out my water bottle and rinsed my palms. I crouched, breathing slow, trying not to let it spiral. I told myself I'd camp soon, make it to sundown, find a flat spot, and hike back in the morning. I wasn't trapped, just off track. I found a small clearing about 20 feet off the path and pitched my tent. No fire. Didn't seem right. I sat with my back to a tree and nibbled a granola bar, watching the trail through the brush like it was going to move. My phone hadn't buzzed once. GPS had stopped hours ago, stuck on a map I'd already walked past. No signal, no updates. I fell asleep eventually. Didn't mean to. Just blinked too long and was out. I woke up at 1:12 IEM. I remember the exact time because I checked my watch instinctively, like I expected to be late for something. There was no sound, no movement, just me, suddenly wide awake, heart already going. Then I heard footsteps, not fast, not loud, just one step every few seconds, slow pacing. They circled the tent once. I held my breath and didn't move. Not even a twitch. Then came the voice, flat tone. Not whispered, not shouted, just stated, like a name being read in a roll call. I didn't move, didn't answer, couldn't. Then again, from the opposite side. Same voice, same tone, like it had been recorded and played back exactly. I stayed like that until I saw light filtering through the nylon. When I finally unzipped the flap and stepped outside, the woods looked normal again. Still. Empty, but there was a new board propped against a nearby tree. 3, and underneath the number, faint but unmistakable, was my name. I didn't eat, didn't think, just packed everything in a rush and started moving fast. No trail snacks, no pacing myself. But the trail didn't look right anymore. Trees were too close together. Turns felt off. I wasn't retracing my steps. I was walking through something different entirely. I tried checking the map, but the blue dot hadn't moved. My screen was frozen again. Then I saw it was hanging from a noose of twine suspended from a branch just above me. I didn't see it until I was directly beneath it. It swung gently, like it had just been hung. I knocked it down with my trekking pole. It felt damp. The back of the wood had tiny, irregular holes, like bite marks. I didn't stop again. The forest got wrong after that. The ground felt spongy. Some of the trees looked burned, but nothing else around them was scorched. I kept seeing flashes of something ahead. A leg moving behind a tree, a shoulder ducking away, but every time I ran forward, nothing was there. Then marker 1. It was just a splinter of wood jammed into the dirt. My name was on it again, this time branded in black. It smelled like melted plastic. Acidic. I snapped, terribly started yelling. Who's out here? What do you want? Nothing. Then running, behind me, I turned and saw something vanish into the trees. Not human, not right. Its limbs moved wrong, too fast and out of sync. I didn't wait for another look. I sprinted, broke through a wall of brush, and there it was, painted across a massive fallen tree, still glistening. I stepped over it, and the air changed. Thick, heavy. My legs slowed like I was wading through water. A few feet ahead, footprints appeared. Bare, my size. They walked forward a few steps and stopped. I didn't. I just kept going, breaking through branches until I saw a clearing, then power lines. I followed them for what felt like hours. Eventually, I found a dirt road. A park ranger's truck came by and I flagged him down. Said I got lost on an old side trail and needed help getting back to my car. I didn't say anything about the numbers. He told me no one used that trail anymore. It had been shut down for over a decade, not even marked on state maps. That night back home, I checked my phone. The picture I took of the 7 board, gone. So was the forum thread. But I still have the 0 sign. I must have grabbed it without realizing. During the sprint, it's in my closet. Still smells like burnt chemicals. And lately, every few nights, I dream I'm back in those woods again, standing in front of it. But instead of 0, the number on it is different. It's my birthday. I work in trail maintenance. Basically the guy who puts up those trail signs deep in the woods where nobody thinks anyone goes. You know those wooden arrows nailed to trees or the signs at junctions in the middle of nowhere? That's me. It's quiet work, usually solo. I get contracts through the parks department, haul everything in on foot, camp out, and fix or replace whatever's falling apart. Last October, I got sent to redo an old loop in Roanoke Ridge, a section of forest that backs up to an abandoned trail called Denton's Hollow. It's not even on the current maps anymore, just the old ones, and even then it's faded out. Locals talk about it like it's cursed or something. I'd heard the usual stuff, people getting lost, weird lights, stories about hikers not coming back. I didn't think much of it. Every area has some version of that. The plan was 4 days on the loop. I'd start at the south entrance, camp where the ridge lines meet, then work my way out along each branch. I hit the trail around 10 a.m. with a 70-pound pack. Signs, bolts, drill, stove, everything. Made decent progress. Around 2, I passed the old turnoff to Denton's Hollow. It wasn't overgrown the way I expected. Narrow, sure, winding, but it didn't look abandoned. The sign was still there, split down the middle, and barely legible, but you could just make out Denton. I stopped. Just stood there staring for a bit, not really sure why. Then I kept going. By the time the sun started to drop, I reached the ridge fork. It's a solid camping spot. Flat, easy to clear, and I'd used it before. I set up quick, started a small fire, boiled some water for one of those sad noodle packets. After eating, I leaned back against a log and just listened. Normal stuff. Crickets, distant rustling, maybe a raccoon. Nothing out of place. I zipped into my sleeping bag around 10. Something snapped me awake a few hours later. Not a noise, not a dream, just that jolt you get when something feels off. The fire was mostly ash by then. I sat up a little, propped on my elbow. There was someone standing at the edge of the clearing, just outside the light, not moving, not talking. No flashlight, no gear, just standing there, straight up, facing me. At first I thought maybe it was a ranger or another camper, but they had nothing with them. No headlamp, no pack, just a shape, upright and still. My knife was next to me, tucked just under the sleeping bag. I slid my hand toward it without breaking eye contact. I didn't blink, didn't breathe much either. I just lay there, holding the handle, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. And then it was gone. One blink. No sound, no movement, just gone, like it had never been there. I got up fast, turned on my headlamp and scanned the tree line. Nothing. No tracks, no disturbed leaves. I circled the clearing twice, still nothing. I ended up sitting by the fire the rest of the night, knife in my lap, eyes on the dark. By morning, I told myself I imagined it. Long hike, adrenaline, maybe a shadow. I boiled coffee, packed my gear and went to check a marker a few miles up the ridge. One I'd replaced about a month earlier. It was out of the ground, not tilted, not knocked over, ripped out. The bolts were still attached, the base was splintered, and the post was lying a few feet off the trail like someone had yanked it out and tossed it. I looked for prints, claw marks, tire tracks. Nothing. I noted it in the log and kept going. That afternoon I found another marker, still in place but bent. The kind of bend you'd expect if something had grabbed it at the top and tried to twist it out of the ground. The post itself was solid, no rust, no scorch marks. No reason it should look like that. At that point, I started feeling off. Not scared exactly, but hyper-aware. I kept glancing behind me more than usual. I made camp that night on a narrow stretch between ridges. Hardly any firewood around, so I just used the stove for some oatmeal and left the fire cold. No tent, just the sleeping bag and the knife within reach. After midnight, the woods went quiet. That kind of silence where everything stops at once. No bugs, no wind, just dead air. Then I heard something moving, not far off, just outside the reach of my headlamp. It wasn't quick, it was slow, careful, like it was pacing. I stood up with the hatchet, waited, then heard it, breathing, heavy, wet, not close but clear. Like someone struggling to inhale with a mouthful of water. I couldn't see anything. I said, "Who's there?" Not loud, just enough to break the silence. No answer. Then I heard another crunch, something shifting position, not away, closer. That's when I shouted, "I'm armed. You come closer, I will use it." For a few seconds, nothing, not even a leaf moved. Then whatever it was took off, fast. Crashing through brush, breaking branches, heavy and fast. I never saw it, just the sound, fading down the hill. I didn't sleep. I sat there gripping the hatchet in one hand, knife in the other, heart trying to pound its way out of my chest. By sunrise, I had the stove packed, the gear lashed down, and I was moving. I didn't even eat, just turned around and backtracked the route. Didn't stop, didn't take breaks. I passed the Denton's Hollow sign again around noon and froze. It had been turned, same post, same bolts, but the sign arm was rotated the opposite direction from yesterday. It now pointed south instead of north, like someone or something had twisted it around during the night. I touched it. The wood was damp, like someone had just handled it. No tracks, no scuff marks, no sign of tools. I left it. Didn't try to fix it, just kept walking. By late afternoon, I reached the lot where my truck was parked. It was still there, right where I left it. But there were 5 muddy streaks across the hood. Not paw prints, not scratches. Fingers. Human-shaped. Long. Like someone had dragged their hand from the grill to the windshield. I got in, locked the doors, and drove the entire 2 hours back to Millbridge without glancing in the mirrors once. I filed my report, left out the figure, the breathing, the signs, left out the handprints. But I don't take jobs near Denton's Hollow anymore. My name's Aaron, and I hadn't been back to Willow Ridge, Kentucky since I left for college at 19. I always said it was because of time, work, life stuff. That was the easy excuse. But really it was because I didn't want to step back into a place where everyone knew exactly who you were, who your parents were, and whether you left your porch light on past midnight. You couldn't sneeze without it being mentioned at church the next Sunday. So when my cousin Lainey called to say Grandma Jean had passed and the house needed clearing out, I figured, okay, 3 days tops. Toss old junk, box up the photo albums, maybe grab a couple keepsakes before someone from town decided to make a big deal out of it. I didn't even pack much, just a duffel with jeans, a hoodie, and a half-empty bottle of Advil. The drive up felt weird. Not sad, not nostalgic, just weird. I hadn't taken that route in years, but somehow every turn was still familiar. I had the windows cracked, and when that first wave of honeysuckle came through, it hit harder than I expected. Like I'd been punched right in the middle of a memory I didn't want to be in. The house looked just like I remembered. Same chipped blue siding, porch swing with one rusty chain that always made this groaning noise like it was about to give out. The yard was rough but not full-on abandoned, like someone had been mowing it just enough to keep the neighbors from calling code enforcement. The kind of care you give out of guilt, not love. The front door still stuck at the bottom. You had to hip check it to get it open. That made me laugh a little because Grandma used to cuss it out every single time. Inside it smelled exactly the same. A mix of cedar, old laundry detergent, and mothballs. I dropped my bag in my old room and stood there for a second, just looking at everything. The twin bed was still there, covered in the same faded quilt. Closet door slightly off its hinge. Window that never really sealed shut. It was like stepping into a photograph, except the kind where you can feel your own awkward teenage years breathing through the wallpaper. I didn't sleep well that night. Just laid there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it click every few rotations. The next morning, that's when I noticed the mirror. It was in the hallway outside the bathroom, across from the linen closet. Oval, brass frame. Used to have those cheap plastic roses around it, hot glued on like a middle school craft project. Those were gone. I walked past it and something caught my eye. Not something in the mirror, but the way I moved. I raised my hand, and it moved just behind me, a split-second delay. Not a full-on glitch or anything, just enough to make me stop. I stepped back and did it again, reached for the wall. My reflection followed, just a little slow, almost like it was watching me, waiting to decide how to respond. I told myself it was lighting, or maybe I hadn't had coffee yet. I kept walking. Didn't think about it again until later that night. Around midnight, I heard the back door creak. I hadn't touched that door since I arrived. It had one of those old locks that sticks unless you yank hard. I grabbed the flashlight from under the sink, the same one Grandma used to keep there for storms, stepped through the kitchen and peeked out. The wooden door was open, not wide, just a few inches, but the screen door was still latched. I stepped onto the back porch and the light above me started flickering. The trees beyond the yard swayed, but not from wind. Something moved, fast, too low to the ground, but upright. Not an animal, not a person. It moved like it hadn't figured out how to control its own limbs. Its shoulders jerked with every step like something in a bad suit trying to imitate walking. Then it vanished behind the old tool shed. I didn't move for a solid minute. Then I locked the door and sat up all night in the living room, watching TV with the volume turned down low. just to have some noise. The next day I went outside to see if I imagined it. I was halfway through my coffee when I saw them. 5 dead birds in the grass, arranged in a perfect circle. No blood, no mess, just laid out neatly, like someone had placed them there one by one. I didn't touch them, just stood there with my mug, staring, waiting for my brain to give me a normal explanation. It didn't. I called Lainey. I asked if Grandma had been acting strange before she passed. There was this long pause on the line. Then she said, really quietly, "Did she ever talk to you about that mirror in the hallway?" I didn't answer. She said it started showing her things, Lainey said. Stuff that wasn't real, or maybe not yet real. Apparently Grandma had covered the mirror during her last few months, wouldn't even walk past it. That night, I tried doing the same, draped a towel over it. 10 minutes later, it slipped off. I figured, okay, gravity. I taped it. The tape peeled itself loose, no sound. No snap, just peeled off like it had been heated. I finally gave up and turned the whole thing around to face the wall. Around 3 a.m., I woke up gagging. There was this smell in the house, wet fur and vinegar, thick and sour like something had rotted in the walls. I got up half-dazed and stepped into the hallway. The mirror was facing forward again. It wasn't showing me. The hallway in the reflection was different, damaged. Wallpaper curling, light fixture dangling, carpet soaked like there'd been a flood. It looked like the house had been abandoned for years. And then I walked into the reflection. Only I didn't. It was me, but not. Same hair, same hoodie. But the smile was all wrong. It stretched too far. The eyes didn't blink. The teeth were long, way too long. And she just stood there, smiling, not moving, not blinking. I ran, didn't grab my phone or shoes, just tore out the front door and didn't stop until I reached the old church at the end of the road. It was boarded up, falling apart. Bell tower had collapsed sometime in the last decade. But I sat on the stone steps because it felt empty in a good way. Like whatever was in the house couldn't be bothered to touch it. I stayed there until the sky started turning pink. When I got back, the front door was open, my duffel bag was on the porch, zipped, packed. There were no footprints, no signs anyone had come inside. I didn't even hesitate, just grabbed the bag and left. But as I passed the hallway one last time, I glanced toward the mirror. The towel was on the floor. The mirror was spotless. My reflection was there, standing still. No delay, no weird smile, just me. But as I turned to go, I caught something in the corner of my eye. Behind the reflection, a shoulder, then fingers. Right behind my head, reaching, I didn't look again. I don't bring up Willow Ridge anymore. Lainey listed the house online, no inspection, cash only. She said she didn't even step inside, just handed the keys to the realtor and left. I'm 34, and I've been working as a wildlife biologist in Western North Carolina for the last 10 years. Most of what I do revolves around tracking big animals, black bears, elk, bobcats, across the southern Appalachians. It's a lot of hiking through remote trails, setting up camera traps, collecting collar data, that kind of thing. I've spent more nights in a tent than in my apartment. Honestly, I liked it that way. The forest has always made sense to me. Or at least, it used to. Last summer, I got assigned to a new survey zone just west of Clingman's Dome. 2-week solo run, monitor camera traps, pull GPS collar data, take field notes. The area was remote, really remote, thick brush, steep terrain, barely any hikers. I liked that. I packed light, loaded up dehydrated meals, and hit the trail just after dawn. The first couple of days went fine. Got good data from the elk collars, my GPS logs looked clean, no issues. On day 3, I reached the first camera trap I'd set up back in April. The camera was trashed, still mounted to the tree, but the actual unit had been wrecked. Like it had been grabbed and smashed into the ground over and over. Plastic split, lens gone, memory card shredded. I filed it as animal damage, probably a bear. I've seen them tear up gear before, especially if it smells like food or salt. 8 miles later, I got to the second camera. This one was okay. I swapped the SD card, backed everything up to my tablet, and decided to check a few clips while I ate. Most of it was normal. Deer wandering around, a turkey strutting past, one clip of a fox sniffing the lens. Then I hit one that made my stomach drop. It started with a raccoon. Moved into the frame, poked around, wandered off. About 30 seconds later, someone else stepped in, and I mean someone. It was a man, naked, head to toe in dried mud. His skin looked wrong, like it was stretched too tight, all ribs and joints. He stood sideways to the camera, not really moving, just holding this weird pose with his head tilted up, like he was trying to hear something far away. He stayed like that for maybe 20 seconds. Then, he dropped to all fours and crawled out of frame. The crawl was what got me. It didn't look like a normal person crawling. It was twitchy, fast, like his limbs weren't bending the way they should. I told myself it was some lost hiker, maybe high, maybe sick. But that didn't hold up. Nobody hikes through this kind of country, naked, in the middle of the night. That evening, I made camp at a place called Cold Spring Gap. I kept the fire going longer than usual. Around 2 a.m., I heard movement outside my tent. Soft footsteps, careful, moving in a circle around my sight. I sat up, grabbed my flashlight, and waited. After a minute, I swept the light across the trees. Nothing. Dead quiet. Then I heard it again. Same sound, closer this time, still slow. I called out, half expecting to hear a deer bull. No answer. I unzipped the tent and stepped out, slowly. Light in one hand, bear spray in the other. I scanned the whole clearing, not a single thing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was there, just out of sight. I didn't sleep at all. Next day, I hiked to the third camera trap. I knew exactly where I'd mounted it. Same beech tree, same bracket. But when I got there, the camera was gone. Not smashed, gone. Like someone had taken a screwdriver, removed the bolts, and walked off with it. Even the steel lockbox was missing. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the empty mount. The bark was clean. No claw marks, no drag tracks, no prints in the dirt. It wasn't an animal. It was too clean, too precise. That's when I decided I was done. I skipped lunch, packed up, and started the return leg early. My GPS estimated 6 hours back to the ranger station. I didn't plan to stop. Halfway through the hike, the trail narrowed onto this rocky ridge, steep drop on both sides. I noticed something moving in my peripheral vision, down to the left, maybe 50 feet below. Looked like something was pacing alongside me through the trees. I paused, it paused. I moved again, so did it. I stopped and looked down the slope, squinting through the brush. All I could make out was this faint, human-shaped figure weaving between trunks. That was enough. I didn't stop again. I didn't eat, I didn't rest. I pushed all the way to the truck and didn't let myself breathe until I was inside with the doors locked. At the ranger station, I gave my report, told them what I saw. My supervisor figured it was a squatter, maybe someone living rough, off the grid. He asked me to upload the footage. I handed over the broken camera, dumped the clips onto the server. Nobody followed up, but I couldn't stop thinking about that guy. The way he crawled. The way he matched my pace without making a sound. I started pulling footage from other cameras in the area, just to see. Most of it was boring, animals doing animal things. But then I found one clip from a trail 6 miles west of my loop. It was worse, 3 figures this time. Same mud, same build. They stood just outside the range of the infrared light. Only one moved. He stepped forward, slow, like he was checking if the camera could see him. Then he crouched until his face was right at Lynn's level. He tilted his head sideways and pressed his ear against the camera. Just stayed there, listening. Then he smiled. It didn't look right. Too many teeth. Way too wide. Like his face wasn't built for that shape. And then the feed cut. That camera stopped transmitting the next day. A week later, a tech went out to check on it. Same thing. Mount was still there. Camera was gone. A few months passed. I got reassigned. Quiet transfer. No explanation, just a message saying I was needed elsewhere. Nobody talked about what happened. I didn't either until 2 months ago, standing in line at a gear shop in Asheville. The guy behind me struck up a conversation. We were both holding the same brand of camp stove, so we started talking trails. I asked where he'd been hiking lately. He said Fontana Lake, solo overnight. Then he told me something that stopped me cold. Said he woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of people crawling around his tent. Not walking, crawling. They circled him for almost an hour. He never saw them, but he heard breathing. Fast, shallow, close. When the sun came up, he found streaks of wet brown mud all around his camp. I didn't say a word, just paid for my gear and walked out. I haven't set foot in the woods since. I'm Joel, park ranger. Been doing the job on and off since I left the Army. I don't do cities. Traffic makes me feel like I'm about to crawl out of my skin, and crowds, forget it. There's too much noise, too many people moving in different directions. Out in the woods, things make sense. Or they used to. This happened in the spring of 2021. They had me assigned to a stretch of the Appalachian Trail near a cluster of lesser-known campsites not far from a town called Wayland Ridge, up in the North Carolina mountains. You've probably never heard of it. Not a tourist trap. No hashtags, no scenic overlooks with railings. Just raw, unfiltered wilderness. Beautiful, yeah, but also rough. No signal, no ranger station within 20 miles. If someone got into trouble out there, it was on them. My post was a little log cabin tucked about a mile off the trail. No roads led to it. You had to hike in, and even then, if you didn't know where to look, you'd probably walk right past it. It was just me, a wood stove, a cot, and a creaky old door that didn't like to stay closed unless you jammed it. I'd hooked up a solar panel to keep a flashlight in my emergency satellite phone running, but that was about it. No lights, no internet, no distractions. Most nights I cooked my meals over a fire pit out front, read old field guides with broken spines, and went to bed when it got dark. I liked the quiet. It felt honest. The first week was uneventful. I walked the trails every morning, checked for damage or downed branches, logged sightings of deer and the occasional bear. A few hikers passed through, nothing out of the ordinary. A couple of retirees from Georgia, a solo woman doing a southbound trek, one guy with a guitar strapped to his pack. Trail chatter, small talk, and they moved on. On my 8th night, I was just getting dinner together, some rice, jerky, the usual, when I heard something behind the cabin. Footsteps. Slow ones coming up the slope. That happened sometimes. People would wander off the main path, hoping for a shortcut, or just plain lost. I figured it was another hiker looking for directions, or maybe a place to crash. This guy steps into the firelight, just sort of appears. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there at the edge of the light, like he was waiting to be invited in. I got a good look at him. Maybe mid-30s, early 40s tops, dark hair with gray starting to creep in around the temples, wore a tan coat, definitely older, and a backpack that looked like it had seen better days. He had a tarp rolled and tied to the top of it. His boots were caked in mud up to the laces, like he'd been walking through riverbeds instead of sticking to trails. He nodded at me real slow. "Evening?" I said, keeping my voice neutral. He nodded again. "Evening." There was something off about how he said it. Not rude, just robotic. Like he was repeating something he didn't understand. I asked if he needed help, directions, water, anything. He said, "No, just looking for a place to camp." Same flat tone, no expression, no eye contact. That threw me a little, but you meet all kinds out there. Some people are just awkward. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he didn't want to talk. I gestured to the patch of flat ground near the fire and told him he could set up there for the night. He dropped his pack and sat down, cross-legged, no tarp, no tent, no bag, just sat, like he was planning to stay exactly like that until sunrise. I offered him food. He said he had some, didn't pull it out, didn't eat anything, just stared at the flames Didn't blink much. I tried some small talk, asked where he came from, how long he'd been hiking. Nothing back. Eventually, I asked his name. He turned his head slowly and looked at me, just a little too long, and said, "Luther." That was it. No last name, no return question. He didn't seem curious about who I was, didn't ask where we were, didn't even seem to register that this was my campsite. Eventually, I gave up trying to get anything out of him. The fire burned low. Around 10, I told him good night and went into the cabin. I left the door shut, but didn't latch it. I kept my boots on and lay down with my knife within reach. That wasn't normal for me. I usually sleep pretty well out there, but something about that guy made my spine itch. Then at 3:12 a.m., I know because I looked at the clock on my GPS, the door creaked open. It was slow, deliberate. Not wind, not an animal nosing around. Someone was opening it. I said up quietly. There he was, Luther, standing in the doorway. Same coat, same boots, eyes locked on me like I was a bug under a glass. He stepped inside and closed the door gently behind him. Didn't say anything at first. Just stood there while I tried not to move. Then he said, "Don't move." His voice was steady, no emotion, no threat either. But that calm, that's what froze me. He walked over to the small table in the corner and laid something down. A knife. Long blade, maybe 8 inches. The handle was polished bone. Looked old. Looked personal. Then he sat in my chair like he belonged there. "I want to tell you something," he said. I didn't reply, couldn't really. I felt like my heart was trying to crawl up my throat. He looked around the room like he was checking the walls for cracks. Then his eyes came back to mine. "I come up here every few years," he said. "Always a different trail, always a different season. Always someone different." I didn't move. Didn't speak. He had the tone of someone explaining a routine, like describing how to tie a knot. "The mountain tells me who," he said. "And you're lucky." That was the first time I spoke. Quiet, barely a whisper. "What does that mean?" He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. "It means you get to listen. Just listen." And then he started talking. He told stories. Names, places, dates. Mount Walker in 2015, Blue Hollow in 2018, a gorge called Millman Pass in 2019. He described hikers, solo, quiet, isolated. One in a yellow tent, another with a black dog, a couple sleeping in hammocks strung between trees. He repeated things they'd said. Whole conversations. He mentioned how one guy snored, how one woman hummed a tune while she boiled water, how a man and his girlfriend had a quiet fight over who forgot the matches. He quoted them word for word. His face didn't change once. Then he described the woman in the yellow tent. I knew that one. That was a missing person case from a few years back, never solved. I remembered it because I helped with the search. He described her pack, her boots, the way her sleeping bag was rolled. He mentioned finding one of her boots half buried near a tree stump. I found that boot. I never logged it, just stared at it and left it there. Didn't tell anyone, figured it didn't matter anymore, but he knew. He talked for close to 2 hours. Never looked away, never paused. Then he stood, picked up the knife, and looked at me like he was waiting for a signal. "Not tonight," he said, and he walked out. Didn't run. Didn't sneak. Just opened the door and walked back into the dark. I didn't sleep. Didn't move until daylight. I sat there the whole time, feeling like I'd slipped out of the world for a while and hadn't come all the way back. As soon as the sun came up, I grabbed the satellite phone and called the station. They airlifted me out by noon. They searched the area. Didn't find him. No prints, no tarp, no campsite. Just one set of muddy boot tracks, heading toward a riverbank. They ended at the water. No marks on the other side. I got reassigned to the Asheville office. Desk work. They said I needed some time. I filed a full report, every detail I could remember, asked around about anyone named Luther. Nothing. Not a single match in permits, incident files, or open warrants. 3 months later, a ranger near the Tennessee border saw a man who sounded just like him. Same coat, Same face, same stare. They sent people out, but by the time they got there, he was gone. Again. Nothing left. I don't care what anyone says. I know what I saw. I know what he told me. And I know he didn't want to spare me. That wasn't his choice. I don't go into deep woods alone anymore, especially not in the Appalachians. I'm Colin, and I work as a field surveyor for a fiber optics company. The job mostly involves hiking remote land and marking GPS coordinates so crews can lay broadband cable later. It's tedious, solitary work, and most of my team avoids the deep wood jobs unless they come with hazard pay. I usually volunteer for those because I don't mind being alone, and I like finishing fast without anyone slowing me down. Last fall, I got assigned to a 15-mile stretch of untouched Appalachian terrain right on the Kentucky-West Virginia border. No towns nearby, no paved roads. The company had bought rights through the area for a future underground cable line, and my job was to chart the elevations and mark suitable paths across ridges and valleys. It was supposed to take me 5 days, solo. I parked near a fire road, left my truck with a full tank, an emergency beacon, and started in with my gear. Tent, food rations, satellite radio, flare gun, theodolite, solar charger, and backup GPS. First 3 days were uneventful. It was quiet, peaceful even. I saw deer, hawks, one black bear from a distance. Every night I pitched camp, set perimeter lines with reflective markers, ate, and reviewed my notes. On the 4th day, things changed. I was about 7 miles in, approaching a ridgeline that I needed to cross. No trail signs, no visible markers. I was navigating completely by topography and waypoints preloaded into my GPS. That morning, a mile into my hike, I saw boot prints on the trail I was following. Not mine. Too deep in the heel, no matching tread. They were recent. Edges, still crisp. I stopped and took a photo. They followed the same direction I was headed. I figured maybe a hunter or a park ranger, but this wasn't public land, and the path wasn't marked on any maps. I radioed base just to confirm no one else was surveying the area. Got a brief response. Negative. I decided to keep going. I've run into squatters and off-grid types before, usually harmless. By early afternoon, I was halfway up the ridge and set to camp just below the crest. The spot was flat and elevated with decent sight lines in every direction. I pitched the tent, cooked a meal, and logged my notes. Around 10 p.m., I turned in. Sometime after 1 a.m., I woke up to the sound of twigs breaking outside the tent. Not a single crack, several. Slow and spaced apart. I stayed still. It wasn't wind. The air was completely still. Something was pacing outside. 4 steps to the right, pause. 4 steps to the left. I grabbed the flare gun and knife but didn't move. I waited. The pacing stopped. Then it started again, this time on the opposite side of the tent. I stayed in place, breathing shallow, waiting for the shadow to move across the tent wall. Nothing. Eventually, I unzipped the flap half an inch and flashed my light quickly. Nothing in view. I stepped out slowly, scanned the area, full circle. No movement. But 10 feet away from the entrance were 2 fresh footprints, identical to the ones I saw earlier that day. No drag marks, no smudging, just standing there, facing the tent. In the morning, I packed up fast and moved out. I didn't eat. I didn't log anything. I just wanted to put distance behind me. I took a steeper path down the other side of the ridge to avoid any chance of circling back into whoever or whatever left those prints. 2 miles out, I found something odd, tied to a branch about chest height. It was a piece of orange surveyor's tape, same type I used, but twisted into a perfect double knot. I never tie mine like that. I looked around. No boot prints, no movement. I left the tape untouched and moved another mile before setting up camp. I didn't sleep that night. Around 3 a.m. I heard breathing. Not footsteps this time, just a slow, steady inhale and exhale, coming from maybe 10 feet behind the tent. Deep and consistent, almost exaggerated. Then a low voice, not loud but unmistakable, said my name. Alan, just once. Flat tone, no inflection. I didn't respond, I didn't move. I waited with the flare gun aimed at the wall of the tent. I never heard anything walk away. It just stopped. I stayed inside until full light. When I finally came out, nothing was there. No prints this time, no evidence of anything. I packed everything again and decided I wasn't going to finish the job. I veered off the planned survey route and hiked east toward a ranger station I remembered seeing marked on an old paper map. It was completely off-grid and would take me 2 days through non-mapped terrain, but I didn't care. I just wanted out. By midday, I was deep in a stretch of forest I wasn't supposed to be in, moving down a gully over loose rock. That's when I saw another piece of orange tape, tied high on a tree about 20 feet ahead. Same double knot, same height. No boot prints, no trail. I kept walking. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't set up a tent. I just sat with my back to a large tree, flare gun loaded in my lap. Every few hours I thought I heard movement, but it always stopped before I could pinpoint it. I stayed that way until dawn, then kept moving. Around noon on the 6th day, I reached the ranger station. I looked like hell. Mud-caked, dehydrated, shaking. I told them I got lost. They logged my info and asked routine questions. Then one of the rangers, an older guy, asked me where I'd been exactly. I gave a rough outline. He looked at the other ranger, but didn't say anything right away. Then he said, "You're the third one this month to come out of there early." I asked what he meant. Another surveyor quit, said someone was following him, wouldn't give details. One more came out with a dislocated shoulder and wouldn't go back in. "You're the first one to finish on foot." I didn't finish. I told him. He nodded like he expected that. I got a ride back to my truck and left that night. I'm a third-grade teacher from Kentucky. Every summer, when school wraps up, I check out for a while. No emails, no meetings, no schedule. I grab my tent, pack my gear, and disappear into the woods for a week or two. No cell service, no GPS, just maps, a compass, and a few routines I trust. A lot of people think that sounds insane. What if you break your leg? What if you get attacked by a bear? I get it, but honestly, that's kind of the point. I go out there because I want everything to shut up for a while. I don't want to answer anyone. I don't want to be around people. I just want quiet. There's this stretch of trail out in Daniel Boone National Forest I've been going to for years. It's rugged enough to feel real, like I'm off the grid. But it's still within reach if something goes wrong. There's a logging road that dead ends near a shoulder covered in gravel. And from there you hike about 6 miles in. No markers, no signs, just old topo maps and instinct. The spot I usually set up is on this ridge shelf with a natural clearing, decent elevation, and a reliable creek maybe 200 feet down the hill. Someone built a fire ring there ages ago out of big stones. It's held up surprisingly well. You can tell other people have used it, but not often. I've been to that same place 3 summers in a row and never once run into another camper out there. The first 3 days were exactly what I needed. I hiked during the day, fished in the creek, cooked dinner over the flames, and fell asleep early. I didn't hear another voice or even see a contrail in the sky. I read the same beat-up paperback I bring every year and let my brain unplug. By day 4, though, I was getting a little restless. I've got a habit of walking familiar loops, but that afternoon I wanted to see something new. There's this one gulch I always avoid. It's steep, the entry is choked with brush, and honestly, it just gives off that bad idea vibe. But I was bored, so I figured I'd at least poke around. Didn't take long before I stumbled across something weird. Down, about half a mile into that gulch, tucked under a crooked old pine, were these stacks of stones. 13 of them, arranged in a clean semicircle, like a little audience facing the tree. Each one was maybe knee-high and made from flat river stones, stacked like miniature towers. They weren't messy or random. Whoever built them took their time. Every rock was balanced with this unsettling precision. There was no trail leading to them, no boot prints, no snapped branches or signs of recent activity. Just these quiet, perfect little towers, sitting in the brush like they'd always been there. I don't know how long I stood there staring, long enough to feel uncomfortable. The number stuck in my head. 13, not 12, not 14. That was probably the worst part. It felt chosen. Eventually, I took a couple photos and left. I didn't feel threatened exactly, but the whole thing put me on edge. Like I'd walked into someone's space I wasn't supposed to see. That night, I crashed early. I always sleep light in the woods, but around 2 in the morning, I was jolted awake by a sound I couldn't explain. In one step, just a single crunch of dry leaves outside my tent. Then silence. Not a squirrel. Not wind, not something scurrying off. It was one distinct footstep. I sat up fast and grabbed my flashlight. Didn't turn it on right away, just listened. My heart was pounding and everything outside was still. No crickets, no frogs, not even wind through the trees. Just nothing. After a minute, I flicked on the beam and unzipped the flap. Swept the light around. Same trees, same bushes. No movement, no shapes. Just a quiet so thick it made me feel like I'd gone deaf. I sat up for over an hour, light on, listening. Nothing came. Eventually, I laid back down, but I didn't really sleep. When the sun came up, I unzipped the tent, stepped outside barefoot, and almost tripped over them. 2 stone piles, same shape and size as the ones in the gulch, same stacking. They were just sitting there about 15 feet from my fire pit, neat and undisturbed. I froze. My eyes scanned the ground. No footprints. No marks where the stones had been dragged. Nothing. I felt my stomach twist. Then I just lost it for a second. Kicked the stacks apart like a kid destroying a Lego set. Rocks flew into the brush. I didn't care. Something about them being that close while I slept made my skin crawl. I packed my stuff in record time, shoved everything into my pack and moved fast. Didn't even make breakfast. I hiked a good mile out and set up in an old spot I hadn't used in years. It was sloped, not ideal for sleeping, but it gave me a better view of the approach from below. I skipped the fire, ate cold protein bars, left my boots laced. Everything about that night was tense. I lay in my bag with the tent zipped up tight, flashlight resting on my chest, my hand on the bear spray canister. I didn't sleep. At exactly 1:47 a.m., I heard it, whistling. Just one note, high-pitched and steady. Held for maybe 10 seconds, then silence. Not a melody, not a bird, just one flat, sharp sound from somewhere behind the tent. I didn't move. My body locked up. I unzipped the flap just enough to hear better. Then came the laughter, a woman's laugh. Soft, distant, but wrong. It sounded fake, like a bad audio file being played through a busted speaker. The same burst of sound over and over again. No change in tone, no real joy in it. Just the same clip, replayed, like someone had hit a button. I didn't make a sound. I just lay there, heart hammering, hand clenched tight around the spray. After about a minute, it stopped. The woods went quiet again. At first light, I didn't eat. I'd even brush my teeth. I packed everything and left, fast. Didn't stop for water, didn't look back. 2 miles down the trail, I realized I'd left my backup phone. It was buried in a gear pouch under a folded tarp. I cursed out loud, stood there arguing with myself. Every instinct said to keep going, but some stubborn part of me, the part that still thought I was being rational, said I had to go back. So I did. The camp was exactly where I left it, but everything had been moved. My gear was laid out in a perfect circle around the fire pit. Not thrown, not scattered, arranged. Cooking gear, flashlight, tarp, toothbrush. All spaced evenly, all upright or unfolded, like someone had examined them and then placed them back down carefully. And around the circle, 13 new stone piles, identical to the ones from before, perfect in height, spacing, everything. I counted twice. I didn't go in, didn't touch a thing. I stepped back into the brush and started circling the site wide, moved slow, careful. I was maybe 30 feet out when I heard it again. Not steps, breathing, close, heavy and uneven, like someone struggling to get air through a bad throat. I dropped behind a fallen log and stayed completely still. Then I saw it, a tall shape, pale against the green, not walking, gliding, like it didn't need to touch the ground. It passed over the leaves without a sound. It stopped by the fire ring, tilted its head like it was listening. I didn't stay to find out what it wanted. I backed away slow, then bolted once I was far enough. Ran until my legs burned. Thought I was safe. Then it crossed the trail ahead, 40 yards out. Long limbs, no clothes. Skin stretched tight and thin, like plastic wrap over bones. The arms hung low, the legs bent backwards. I dropped behind a stump and didn't breathe. It didn't look at me, just passed through and vanished. I waited 10 minutes before I moved again. Made it to my car, threw everything in the backseat without even organizing it, and drove straight until I hit a gas station with lights and people. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't report it. I mean, what would I say? I never got that backup phone, and I haven't camped solo since. Not in Kentucky, not anywhere. My name's Chris, and I do trail maintenance for the state parks out in eastern Tennessee. A couple years back, they sent me to this really remote stretch of the Southridge Mountains, way out past where the casual hikers ever go, the kind of place that only hardcore backpackers even bother with. The trails up there get narrow, overgrown, and honestly, they're not on most maps anymore. My job was the usual: clear out debris, fix up any washed out sections, and repaint or replace trail markers that had faded. Nothing exciting, just me, the woods, and whatever needed fixing. This particular stretch was about 9 miles in from the nearest service road, so I started early. Packed a lunch, some gear, and strapped a chainsaw to my back. It was a long hike, but the morning went by without anything weird. By noon, I made it to this ridge where there was an old sign barely holding on, just chipped wood and faded paint. Said Knowles Crossing, though most internal maps just called it Trail 52. That's when I noticed something felt off. Not scary, just weird. No birds, no insects, not even the buzzing kind you usually swat away in your sleep. Just the sound of my boots crunching along the dirt and the occasional creak of the gear on my back. I figured maybe it was the time of year, or maybe elevation. Places like that can go quiet sometimes. Nature does what it wants. About 4 miles in, I came across a tree down right across the trail. It was big, way too big to step over or walk around easily. And if anyone came through with pack animals, it would have completely blocked the way. So I dropped my stuff, got the saw going, and started cutting. Then I heard footsteps, fast ones, coming straight through the brush. I killed the saw immediately and turned around, expecting maybe a backpacker coming in hot, but there was nobody, just underbrush and trees. I stood still, scanning all around. And then I heard it again, this time behind me. I spun, still nothing. I backed up slow, turning in a full circle, checking every direction. Didn't see a thing. I packed my gear fast and moved on. I've been in this job long enough to know not to shrug that stuff off. Weird things happen out here. People wander off trails, vanish into nowhere. I wasn't going to be one of them. Half a mile later, I saw this odd marker, just a piece of carved wood nailed crookedly to a tree. Not park issued. I know those trails well. Nothing's supposed to be that far off Trail 52. But curiosity won. I veered off and followed this barely there path heading north. It was tight. Shrubs grabbed at my sleeves. Felt like no one had walked that way in a year. About 15 minutes in, I found a clearing and a structure. A shelter, but not a park one. This was older, handmade, Logs dark with age, moss creeping up one side, no trash, no fire pit, no gear, door hanging half open. I called out, nothing. I approached and placed my hand on the door frame. The wood was warm, like someone had just touched it. I stepped inside. One room, dirt floor, broken bench in the corner. But the walls, they were covered. Hundreds of symbols and scratches, deep gouges, some overlapping like they were carved over time. I didn't recognize any of them. Then I noticed the corner. The dirt sloped down like something had been dug up. I walked over, crouched down. There was a pit, not too deep, maybe 3 feet. But at the bottom were bones, human, arranged, clean. No signs of decay, no debris, just clean white bones. Intentionally placed. I backed away fast and got out of there. Back in the woods, I heard movement again. Not footsteps this time, more like heavy drops. Something leaping through trees, staying just out of sight. Branches bounced, leaves shifted. I didn't stop to figure it out. I moved fast, made it back to the trail. But now there was a boot print. Dead center, fresh, facing back the way I'd come. Not mine. Someone had been following me. I kept moving, no stopping, just walking hard and fast, eyes scanning constantly. I didn't eat, didn't take a break. That part of the trail follows a steep ridge, tight switchbacks. As I turned one corner, I caught a flash through the trees below. Someone was moving parallel to me, same pace. But closer now, I pushed harder, almost running uphill. I caught glimpses, movement just out of focus, always ducking behind trunks, matching my direction. Finally, I hit a straight stretch, enough space to really look. I stopped, dropped to a crouch, nothing, dead quiet. Then a branch snapped behind me. I turned, and there he was, 20 feet away, a man, kind of, tall, lanky. His clothes were all wrong, boots loose, jeans torn like he'd been living in them forever. No pack, no tools. His eyes were wide, too wide, and didn't blink once, just stared. Then he smiled, and it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind you see in animals before they strike, like he already knew how it was going to end. I slowly drew my machete from my belt. Didn't speak, neither did he. He stepped forward, just one step. I didn't move. Then he turned, bolted straight uphill, crashing through the underbrush like it wasn't even there. I waited, counted out 5 minutes, maybe longer. Then I ran, didn't think, didn't slow down. That last mile felt like 5. Trees whipping past, every sound behind me making my heart punch harder. I made it to the service road, sprinted the rest of the way to my truck, threw myself in, locked the doors. Didn't file a report. Didn't say anything. I marked Trail 52 as damaged beyond safe access. Recommended permanent closure. Nobody questioned it. Nobody's gone out there since. And me? I've been all over the park since then.